I don't expect this to go. High.
Okay, I think we're ready, sir.
All set, all right. Call the Industrial Development Agency Board of Directors meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the roll call.
All right, Mr. Burton,
Here.
Mr. Johnson,
Here.
Mr. McAllister.
Here.
Mr. Trapani.
Here. Reading and approval of the minutes.
Tab 1, you'll find the minutes from the last IDA regular board meeting.
I have a motion to approve.
So moved. It was like a transcript.
I know.
My goodness.
I'll second.
Yeah, you should.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. Minutes are approved. Bills and communications.
None to report, sir.
Report of the treasurer.
All right, I have 2 documents for the IDA board to review this morning. The first is the regular document that I circulate every month, the cash position report. 2 things I'd like to point out. Under the investments, last item in red, you'll notice $103,000 CD for JP Morgan. That is a rollover of a CD that matured, I think, the 8th of this month. We talked about going out a couple of years, putting some capital to bed and trying to leverage rates as we think they're going to go down over time. So that's a 5.2% interest rate, replacing a 2.1. And as you can see, locked in there for a couple of years there. The other item I would like to point out is the rather large accounts payable amount. That amount includes, if you'll recall from last month, a $16,099 payment to the county that will be forwarded to the state to close out the revolving loan fund program. It just hasn't cleared through the system. So that's why that number is abnormally large. Any questions on that? The second document I provided for the board to take a look at is a cash flow projection through the end of this fiscal year, which ends June 30, and then an extrapolation for the next 12 months, the fiscal year 2025. So I'm charting our cash for a couple of reasons. Number one is, as larger bills for Shad Point come in, I want to make sure that we can float if the county is going to be, if the county lags on its reimbursement. They've been great so far, but you never know what's going to happen. So I think it's important to chart the cash flow. The second purpose of cash flow is to make sure that we have the right amount of cash in investment to maximize interest rates. We don't want to leave ourselves cash short, but at the same time, we want to make sure if we do have extra dollars that we can invest those dollars. So I continue to look at the cash projections, and I figured this was as good a time as any to provide it to the board so they can see where I think we're going to be over the course of time.
Fonda, is the cash in June of this year, is that a payment from the county for the grant?
No, that is recorded in July. I think you're referring to the $130,000. That is recorded in July. The June amount is assumption that the sale of the property on Inner Springs Road will happen.
Okay.
Funded the cash in though, for let's say September in the first schedule, it's 2140. Is this including the $150,000 a year that the board of supervisors providing for us?
So in July, we account for those dollars to come in. The net on the healthcare reimbursement is a 0 to the IDA, so I don't include that here because it's an in and out really quick. That just seem to be a little bit more onerous. What you have here are 2 different cash projections, and I probably should have led with this statement. The first box is an all-in cash position, including any additional dollars from the revolving loan fund. So if we wanted to utilize that as IDA cash for operations, we have that. The second box eliminates that, assuming that at some point in time, we restrict those funds for other uses. So I look at it in both regards.
So let me get back to the July, the first one.
Yep.
That we get paid annually by the board of supervisors?
We're paid annually for the $130,000.
That answers my question.
And then as far as the reimbursement is concerned, the county prefer to do that on a month-to-month basis.
Okay.
Probably the only other item I would notice is in December, you'll see that there's a $50,000 cash in. In our budget, I made an assumption that administrative fees in the next fiscal year would be $50,000. So we had to put it somewhere, so I figured I'd put it right smack dab in the middle of the year in December. Obviously, that will change as details go on.
I just question the need for two cash flow projections, general fund and all cash. I'm still cloudy as to why it can't be part of a schedule with, you know, cash in for X, cash in for Y, cash in for Z. And this way, I don't know.
We'll get to one when the IDA board decides what they want to do with the additional dollars for the revolving. Yeah. So if I know that the board has
Okay.
decided to go and restrict it, then we won't count it.
That's why, all right, all right.
And if we say, if the board says we're gonna go and just count it as operational cash,
Yeah.
then, you know, we'll eventually use
We're
one or
gonna
the
decide
other.
that today?
No, not today, unless you want to. I don't have it on the schedule for today, but you're the board, and if you want to decide it today, we can absolutely decide it today.
Are you anticipating adding staff full-time?
Not at the moment. Probably the way we do that is if the IDA starts taking on grant administration. Right now, Sarah Nickel is working on a part-time basis contractually for us. And I find that those services are right at the sweet spot. She's taking some of those admin tasks that I was doing, so that frees me up to do other things.
Good.
But if we do get into the grant administration business, we'll need to increase somebody's hours, whether that ends up being one full-time person, if Sarah's hours increase, or we go with two part-times, depending on need and skill sets.
And the grant administration would be something from MVED or National Grid? Or there are other things?
No, it would be, if we decided to partner with the county and be a sub-recipient on, say, a micro enterprise grant program, then there's a lot of administrative work to go along with that. And this is an example of something that would increase the workload. And we'd either rely on Sarah or somebody else to do that administrative work. And there's a 10% VIG on that program, right? So we would get reimbursement back for her time, or who's ever time.
Okay.
Any further questions on cash flow? Hearing none. Let's move on to reports of committees.
None of the committees met, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, unfinished business.
As part of our new procedures, I am to report any recurring costs. I communicated with the chairman over the past month, and we decided that getting an IDA cell phone was more cost effective than getting a landline through the college. Costs were comparable, and this way the cell phone is more portable and mobile. And so that recurring cost is $50 per month.
Any further discussion on unfinished business? Hearing none, moving on to new business.
Okay, tab 3 of your packet, resignation from Mr. Overing from the IDA board. I think most everybody's probably aware he's been appointed the new supervisor for the town of Schoharie. And so he has resigned. And he did address the letter to the members of the board, so I figured I would include it here so everybody had a copy of that.
It will be missed.
Yes.
Agree.
Very smart guy, very, very, very personal. When does his term end as a supervisor?
He's got to run for reelection.
In November. And he probably will, because.
Yes. Yeah, the law is that you have to stand for election at the next general election.
Okay, so that leaves us with a position to fill. Do we want to address potential names here, or how do you want to proceed?
Well, I've spoken to a couple of people about this. One person was very positive about the possibility. The other was a little uncertain of her own future activities, so she was not as quite as open. But can we mention people's names?
Well, why don't we do it by,
Because nobody's committed yet.
right, I don't think we could
But
put a name out there,
this
but
is an individual with banking background, experience, long-term, long-time resident of Schoharie County, I think, for her entire life, as a matter of fact. And she's very able.
I'm glad you said her. I think the
Yes.
diversity is a good thing.
So she's not quite committed, but I think would be very interesting.
all right.
Well, the next step would be what?
To get her to commit.
To get, no, I mean, will you take that next? step?
Yes, I will.
Good thing.
The other person is a entrepreneurial background. Very interesting, and also born in Schoharie County, lived outside the county for a while, has been back for a while, and has a very interesting personal history in regard to developing businesses that are high tech.
That's wonderful. You're here for both of them.
I have a person who's interested in Schoharie County, run a business here managed a business here for years, still managing that business. And it's been on planning board, zoning boards, and so on. Be a very good thinker, just outstanding person. So we got a few ideas, which is great.
I think it's great. Well, how many people could we have? What is the?
Maximum by law is 7 members of the board.
Were they going to do that? Are they going to expand or?
I haven't been told that they're gonna go from 5 to 7. The Board of Supervisors hasn't found that to be an interesting topic.
So at this point,
As far-
You said 5 or 7? What?
The maximum is 7.
Right.
We have
That's by
5.
state law.
Yeah, that is by
Right,
state.
but
We could
and
add
we have
people if
5.
we wanted to.
Yeah.
Well, you can certainly suggest to the Board of Supervisors going to 7. They do the appointing.
I wouldn't do that until we get our
Yeah, sure.
full.
Until we get what?
I think we get our 5 full positions now. We need to have that.
So just to ask for 7, we need the Board of Supervisors, even though, I mean, if our bylaws say 7, we should, it's the person that the Board of Supervisors passes on. Is that?
I would get a legal opinion on that. You're probably right from a technical standpoint. I was just kind of thinking through the process, and Joe Scott has been very clear that the composition of the board is the purview of the Board of Supervisors. He made that clear in our meeting. So how that works out, whether it has to be bylaws or the county or a combination thereof, I would certainly defer on to the legal folks on that.
Oh, shouldn't it come from a recommendation from this board to do that?
It certainly makes sense.
I think so.
I'd like to think that everybody would work collaboratively on things along those lines. Doesn't always seem to start out that way, but it seems to be ending that way, which is better than nothing.
Since we're talking about this, I'm planning on resigning in the near future. I've spoken to Chad and agreed to stay on for a bit until we get 1 or 2 people. So in a circumstance where you're down to 3 and somebody couldn't make the meeting, you couldn't help it. The meeting. But I've got I'm getting on in years and you're trying to simplify matters. I turn 80 this
So you're a little bit behind me.
year. Yeah. So, but with,
Just turned 80.
yeah.
So there's no excuse. You have to
Right.
say, if Joe says you have to say.
Or is the octogenarian club here?
The amount of time
Yeah.
about to know this has increased substantially. And as well as to seek. So I think something's got to go. And I think it's probably better for the IDA. I can't get out of being a village trustee. So
I think before we go any further, do you have to be 80 to be on this?
I think so.
That could eliminate it. Luckily,
Me too. Just me.
So you're born in 44 too? Okay.
I was in 43.
More babies.
All right, so we have a few people. We get some commits, then we can activate forward, move from there. Next item, resolution in support of the collaborative environment, economic development efforts.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last month, I reported back that a group of 5 economic development partners in air quotes, loose sense of the word, not the legal sense of the word, have been meeting a couple of times a month for a couple of hours each meeting as a way to try and begin moving forward together and collaborating on economic development activities as it makes sense for the different entities and for the county as a whole. This month, I will ask you to review and vote on a resolution supporting that effort. There's obviously no financial commitment, just a little bit of time on my end. The partners, the founding partners anyway, are obviously the IDA and SUNY, SEEK, technical experts from the county, and Destination Marketing Corporation.
This is a great thing to get going. I think your leadership is really important. We haven't had anybody to lead this effort since I've been here.
Well,
This is really good.
The great thing about it is that everybody's taking a leadership role at some point in time. There's nobody who's in charge of this. We're all together, and if something is more industrial, obviously the IDA would take the lead. If it's something more downtown, probably SEEK would take the lead. Workforce is really the purview of SUNY in many instances, and if it's a tourism related, you've got the tourism people. But everybody's at the table, passing knowledge and supporting each other and seeing where there are synergies, and that means that everybody is starting to work together. And I think that not only sends a message to everybody that, we're serious about economic development and making some progress within the county, but it also means that not one of us is a pure expert on anything. And so we put our minds together and we're significantly better as a whole than we are efforts that are going in different directions. But we also maintain the independence that is necessary for each entity to do its own mission work.
You find out in observing this go forward, both from the material you provided us, but also material we've seen at SEEK. Why isn't the county board of supervisors itself signing on to this rather than technical experts have been working for the county? That seems a rather amorphous group.
No, I would disagree with that. What we want is we want people who are rolling up their sleeves and actually doing the work of economic development to be at the table. There is a plan to ask the county board of supervisors to sign off as well and say, we recognize this group. I can't guarantee how that's going to roll or what the board of supervisors is going to do or view. That is not my lane. But we are hoping that the board of supervisors will sign off on this group and support its efforts. And just by allowing those technical experts to be at the table, they are basically supporting that, right? There's a role and a function for somebody, a planner perhaps. We have Nick Kosman, who's the ag guy, at the table. So we're getting different perspectives. John Crisimano, the Economic Development Coordinator, is also at the table. So, and we'll be able to loop in different county experts as necessary. We may need the treasurer's office at some point in time, real property. It might be important. There may be others as well. So what we are trying to do is get the folks that roll up their sleeves, the blue collar folks that are in every day doing this, and everybody is involved in it. So I think that's the right way to go about it. This is not elected officials and board members. This is staff on staff work. It's a different purpose.
Isn't your representatives, they are representing the board, in a sense, but they're the ones who are doing the work like the AGA. I mean, that's what they hired them for, is to be part of that, right? I mean, the industrial development person is there now. We
Yeah.
didn't have that before.
Correct.
So
And I think that's key.
that's their leadership role. And they will discuss with the board and so on issues and so on and get feedback. But that's what that guy's supposed to do.
He's my point, you said he's representing the board.
Absolutely.
So I think that sort of satisfies me.
In the
You know,
one way.
they're representing.
And so on.
Maybe what you want is sort of an imprimatur by the Board of Supervisors, but we have it in a sense because these members are representing the board. He's representing the IDA. Somebody's representing C. Does that help?
Yeah, I think so. It's just that, as we discovered 5 years ago, the Board of Supervisors thought that the county had no role in economic development. And now they've changed their mind and they think they've got the role in economic development. So that could change. But since nobody's investing any money or pledging funds, and there's no bureaucracy involved with this organization, it's totally voluntary. And people can withdraw from it, or institutions can withdraw from it whenever they want to. Then it's probably left better as this kind of very loose affiliation of groups.
Worker bees.
Yeah, that's what we need. We need people on the ground that are willing to put in the effort.
Good. I
And
think it's good.
a coordinated effort is always better than a piecemeal effort.
So this will be known as Spark, apropos term.
We worked hard on that name.
Very nice.
That's cool. So you're now Sparky? I couldn't resist, man.
I've been called worse.
I'm so sorry.
All right, any further questions on this? Are you prepared to take a roll call vote?
Will someone move the resolution?
I'll move the resolution.
Anybody
Yeah,
will second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Opposed?
I have to do a roll call on it because it's a resolution, sorry.
All right,
Mr. Burton?
yes.
Thank you. Mr. Trapani?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. McAllister? For affirmative vote, sir, resolution is official. Passes. Thank you.
Okay.
Peter, don't let me forget to have you with the fix.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is term limit proposal.
So I did send this out as an email. The chairman of the Economic Development Committee did put out a loose proposal to adopt term limits for terms and term limits, I guess we'll put it that way, for members of the IDA board. Currently, they serve at the pleasure of with no time constraints. His initial proposal is a 5-year term renewable, so a total of 10 years to serve. I did obtain a legal opinion from Joe Scott at Hodgkin Russ. He says any of that is completely 100% the purview of the Board of Supervisors. There will be no updates to bylaws or anything. It's basically whatever the the term of the Board of Supervisors determines. But I figured as long as it was a topic for discussion, that we should bring it up, and if any board members had any preferences or any directives for me to give to the county, I'd be more than happy to pass those along.
Well, certainly, if they do that, they want to do it on an alternate basis. Where we have one or two coming up.
Yeah.
As long as you can't have five coming up.
No.
So that would be the only issue. Important.
I think they're aware of that issue.
Right,
Sure.
It's for the potential of four people serving until they're 90.
Please, no.
All right. Any further discussion on term limit proposal?
So, but it hasn't been done, this hasn't been resolved, this is just a proposal, correct?
It was a proposal made by the chair of the Economic Development Committee. As Joe Scott tells me, what the board could simply do is anytime they appoint somebody moving forward, they would just appoint them for a term.
Right.
So
Right.
person X appointed to the IDA board for a term beginning this
Right.
for 5 years, renewable once is how that would work. According to Joe Scott.
They haven't, at the Board of Supervisors, they don't actually have a proposal along those lines yet. They haven't drafted anything.
No, I haven't seen anything. I don't see anything on the agenda for tomorrow's meeting. Although I'm starting to attend to make sure that, there's IDA representation in case there is an issue that comes up. And I'm not so sure there would be a proposal other than when names move forward that they actually incorporate.
Okay.
That's as Joe Scott tells me how they would most likely address it. Now, they have a county attorney, and that county attorney may have a different opinion, and he may do, or may require something different. That I'm unsure of at the moment.
In other words, the possibility of Chet, Joe, and Leo having to be reaffirmed or reconfirmed is there.
Given the fact that I'm not a legal scholar, so I'm trying to interpret what I understood from Joe Scott when I got his legal opinion. Right now, members of the board, the IDA board, serve at the pleasure of, with no term. Like tomorrow it could end, or it could end 10 years from now when you're 90. So my guess would be, I shouldn't speculate, but I think the answer to your question is a yes, but it's a qualified yes.
Yeah.
Depends on how they want to address it moving forward. And right now, their strategy is unclear, but they did bring it up. So I thought it was important that we at least make it a discussion topic here at the meeting.
Well, with the age of the people that are on here now, I don't think that's gonna be a real issue.
No,
Yes.
not at all. You just were appointed to a term, and it's going to go for whatever, and then 5 and 5. So you could be here till you're 95.
But what, for example, when Leo was appointed, he wasn't appointed for a term, he was
I know,
appointed to the
yeah.
board. That's your point, right?
I think the problem, as it always has been, is finding qualified people to do it. Because you really have to know something about two important things: finance and the process of economic development. And I'm sure there are 5 people, other people in the county could fit that.
But with this organization, with this group that you have together, I think that's gonna help in having people who might be interested, or knowing people who might be
Networking,
interested.
too.
I think that's gonna really be beneficial.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I think I'm very much in favor of this proposal. I think the problem for the last 30 or 40 years is that there's really been no consistency and no coordination within Schoharie County to do things. I think moving towards an integration of IDA within a broader framework, institutional framework, to stimulate, promote, and oversee economic development is a very, very good idea. The counties in New York State that have been most successful have a very well coordinated and integrated IDA, Business Advisory Council, and county planning. And maybe the incipient shoots are starting to appear. They've got to be nurtured and continued for it to be successful.
Okay, we move on. Next item, strategic planning process.
So it's time to start thinking strategic planning. And the place to start is with the organization's mission statement. So tab 5, if you put your attention to there, is a group of 3 pages that starts off with our current mission statement. Page 2 is 3 mission statements that I pulled for various reasons, just as a comparison point of view. And then a mock-up on the 3rd page of me just trying to integrate some of our compadres' mission statements with our own. And so on the 3rd page, you can see in the green what I propose as a starting point for discussion on the mission statement. And then underneath that is the same statement with inserted words in green and words that are omitted, crossed out, and in red, just so that you can see how the mission statement proposal is changed.
The colors aren't coming up. on
Oh,
these
geez, I
copies.
didn't, I'm so very sorry.
So,
Comments late.
Do you need me to make a color copy? So
No,
sure.
no.
I didn't bother to look to see if it,
I thought maybe you had glasses that we.
I do, I have those magic $2 glasses that Peter was
you
talking
left
about
the English
earlier.
glasses, so.
You didn't know you were all colorblind now.
Maybe
The eclipse glass.
the eclipse glasses.
My apologies, I just assumed that it,
So, let me try this for an approach here to get some clarity on what you've done. You've taken our existing mission statement that we developed a few years ago, and you've reviewed the other mission statements of several other counties, and then you've blended what you thought was important in terms of what we are doing and would be appropriate to say in our mission statement. Could you go through this and highlight and give reason why you've designed it in this way?
absolutely. Overarchingly, what is important in a mission statement, as far as I think the IDA is concerned, and this is some advice that we received from a couple of conferences that I went to, is that the IDA mission statement should highlight what the IDA would like to accomplish. And I think it's important for the IDA to take maybe a more broader based approach in its mission statement so that it can cover issues that are at the forefront today, but could also become important or more important as time goes on. So I didn't change anything in the first sentence, but in the second sentence, I'll read to you what I've changed to, and I think you'll see if you do a comparison that it becomes a little bit more broad-based in the mission that I state. So the SCIDA will do this by offering financial incentives instead of assistance, incentives to business and industry to diversify and strengthen Schoharie County's tax base and enhance community vitality. So it's a bit more broad, a bit more amorphous, if you will, by supporting job creation, which is obviously our number one metric. But I also begin to include housing, because housing is probably our overall the number one challenge that we'll have. Business and industrial development. And then here's one that I added, community revitalization, which is really a mission statement that we in Spark found to be extremely important, because it's community revitalization is a bit of a deeper topic than just economic development. And I think if we take a more synergistic view of our role, then those are things that we would want to take into account. So for example, it would be great if something at Shad Point happened and we brought in 500 or 1,000 workers. where are we gonna put them? Right? That's the housing issue. If they are going to relocate in Schoharie County, are there enough services, private sector services to keep people here? Are there enough restaurants? Is there enough shopping? Are our downtowns vibrant? So you can see how it all intertwines and so we should be thinking about those issues. And that's one of the things that Spark will do is we'll look at this thing at a 360-degree level, not just, okay, we're gonna create 500 jobs and okay, our job is done. There's so much more to it than that to be completely effective. Now, the IGA's normal job would be, all right, we created 500 jobs, job done, and we move on to the next project. And that's extremely positive for the community, but there's so much more to it than that. And I think that as the IGA moves forward and it continues to work with the other partners, we need to be thinking more 360-degree, more holistically in that community revitalization, enhancing the tax base, community vitality. Those are all additional items to just bringing in a company and saying that we created 500 jobs.
We don't mention tourism in this. Is that intentional or?
The IGA can't do tourism,
I see.
doesn't do retail, and the county has contracted with Destination Marketing
All
to
right,
do
so
that.
that's
That's
why.
their job.
Okay.
But as we coordinate more with Spark, we have a seat at the table, we hear what's going on, and we can help contribute to that in ways that make some sense.
Fonda, in light of what you just said, you've got enhanced community vitality and then community revitalization. Might it be better to start that sentence off or that fragment to diversify and strengthen Schoharie County's tax base and community revitalization by supporting, in other words, drop community vitality and put in community revitalization.
It's the board's mission statement, so I'm happy to, if we need to wordsmith it, happy
You
to
know,
do so.
if.
I'm sorry,
community
Peter, where are you exactly?
Right in the middle of the SCIDA mission
Where it says
statement.
county's tax base and enhanced community.
Yeah, in other words, eliminate community vitality and move community revitalization up there.
And then by supporting.
Yes.
blah, blah, blah. Flows a little better, maybe.
Fonda?
Okay.
You think
Absolutely.
that's a good?
Okay.
Yeah, the wordsmithing is much better. That's why collaboration is so good. You've got many eyes at it.
Because I think you're absolutely right. Dealing with the housing is such a huge issue in this county. Well, you know, better than most. But I've talked to younger people who literally cannot find an affordable place to live in Schoharie County. And they're sometimes college graduates and so on. There's nothing available that fits their budget. So they move to Albany or Schenectady or someplace else. So that's a biggie. If you have both something at Shad Point and the High Bridge development, there's no place for any of those people to live. Any of them.
In other areas of the country, I see it most when I'm flying and going over certain areas, and you'll see, industrial complexes, and around them you see these massive apartment buildings,
Yes.
one right after the other. And that's to house the people that are working in these
Yeah.
places. And it's almost, you need, if you're going to have a lot of people working here, and you want them to stay, you almost have to have large plots of land and some developer coming in and putting in all these apartment buildings, or condos or whatever.
But you know that, that's not gonna happen until the business is here, until the employment's here. Because the builder's not gonna do that, can't afford to do that until there's people demand for it. we've seen in Colescale, 2 or 3 pretty good sized apartment complexes in the last 10 years. You know, and they're all full, which is interesting.
Yeah.
You don't see much building, home building, but you have seen a number of apartment complexes. But it takes people, it takes the business, then that'll
But there is a demand there now.
some, but
And if we bring in hybrids and they're hiring
That will-
people, then, you know, it's a little bit behind the 8 ball, but I mean, they can throw these places together in, you know, 6 months to a year's time.
Yeah, well,
But you need all the approvals and everything else is gonna take more than a year, so some,
Well, I think that's one of the things I think the planning boards and so on really looked at carefully. And they're shortening this timeframe a lot.
good.
And I know Cobblestone has really worked on that because we screwed up badly with Lowe's here
Ooh,
many years ago. And that was a perfect example of how badly you can do it. And they've really done a good job. I think that the time frame is much narrower now for people to get things done.
Great.
well, the great progress has been made in Colescale and town of Schoharie in pushing these things along.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the hybrids thing took exactly a year to do, which is sort of unprecedented. I've seen them argue over, you know, lot line adjustments for 6 months. So there is improvement.
Okay.
I have a question on what the very end of this, where we mention the partners. And Spark is mentioned specifically. And yet Spark, there's no, it's an ad hoc organization, correct?
Correct, yep.
So I'm just wondering about that. Somebody looks at the mission statement and says, who the hell is Spark, and looks up Spark. I mean, I don't know, maybe, we don't need to mention it specifically, as part of the mission statement.
Good point.
This is,
Because you guys aren't gonna have a website.
yeah, exactly. It's not a formal, it's not a nonprofit, it's not an organization. It doesn't have a charter or its own mission statement or anything. So I personally would delete the reference to Spark.
So in the original mission, the current mission statement, in that number 5 spot was seek.
Wow.
And because seek, you know, there's more to it than seek, there's more partnerships. So what made sense to me was let's expand that and utilize Spark. So we could put seek right back in there and cross that out. We could include seek in the 3 other members.
I wouldn't include anybody.
No.
Right,
I agree.
right.
You're covering it for not-for-profit.
Not-for-profit organizations, right.
All right. Eliminate it.
But at some point in time, when Spark becomes a body, then we ought to put it back in. But we can do that at any time. We can
We
revise.
can do it anytime, and Seek is a body, we're not putting them in, so, anyway.
The only other change, if you look at the last sentence in the first paragraph, the first part, the clause in the beginning doesn't change. By utilizing the statutory powers of the agency as set forth under the provisions of New York State law. And then I changed the narrative a little bit to say this. SCIDA strives to develop a local economy that embodies the county's rich history, community strengths, and natural assets. And this is a discussion point that came out of our talks with Spark, that we recognize that the county has strengths. Its natural beauty is critically important to maintain. It's why people come here, and we have a rich history. And I think it's important for us as we move forward and make, quote, progress on the economic development side. We don't forget that, because that's where the community will come up against us. We have to always consider our history, what we consider our community strengths, and protect our natural assets. So I thought that was an important part of the mission statement to make, but obviously that's my thoughts and only represents my position.
Well, I'm not sure where this is. Is the suggestion the first part or the second part marked up?
The second part.
All right,
Yeah,
marked up, then you gotta take out, Herkimer County.
Yeah, you gotta take out Herkimer County, but also the statements at the end of the first paragraph and the end of the third paragraph are exactly the same.
So I think there might be a little confusion here. So the first part from, say, here to here is the mission statement. This part is all of this, but I cross out what is from
Okay.
our original mission
All
statement.
right. Okay, gotcha.
But this is the state.
So this is the proposed new statement.
Right.
This is the same
This is
thing
just
that's
a
marked
work
up.
copy.
Yeah.
All right, okay, fine, that's good, that's good. That's,
So everything is correct up top.
Yep.
But the copy paste function let me down a little bit on the bottom part.
Fonda, when you get to all of it, the technical aspects of what the IDA does, bond financing, so on and so forth, that's going to be retained somewhere, right? This is the cover to everything else.
Yeah, so we refer to financial incentives, and then on this, in the second sentence there, we talk about utilizing the statutory powers of the agency as set forth by New York State law. So that's where what you say comes into place,
Okay.
without us having to state it.
yeah, you don't put that in the mission.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
So that follow your objectives and goals.
Right.
If you turn the page, all of those very specific powers that the state has given to the IDA will be mentioned. I wonder then if financial and tax incentives.
okay. So you're talking that second sentence where it starts the SCID
Yes.
will do this by offering financial and.
Just financial, is that what your point is?
No, add tax.
Oh, and tax.
Financial and tax incentives.
Okay.
Because, having that particular power is the basis for everything.
Big wheel.
But other than that, I think it's fine.
Okay.
Any more rationale you want to give on this?
No, I think we've talked about it. I just wanted to expand the mission statement a little bit to take into account some of our current challenges as it pertains to economic development. And I think this helps when we need to justify a decision that's made. You can always tie it back to your mission statement and say it's part of our mission.
What you said about community revitalization is very important. I'm not suggesting that you elaborate on it here, but I think it's the kind of thing that point has to be made over and over and over again. That this is about much more than pilots and mortgage tax forgiveness. It's really about creating policies that will stimulate housing development, will focus on workforce development, will maybe focus on, to quote Marion Terenzio, changing school curriculums in order to strengthen the training that young people receive, so that will all dovetail together. So I think that's an exceptionally strong point that needs to be repeated, to the point where people go, "Oh God, he's going to say it again."
Well, that's how you win the argument. You just keep bringing it up. But you're right. This is a community-wide effort. This is not piecemeal. And that's why it's important for some of us to get together and start finding common areas to work together in. And out of that, we hope to do a lot of what you just said.
Any further discussion on this mission statement? Are we ready at this point to accept this as a
We've changed it.
with changes in the future?
As suggested. So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Hearing none? Fonda, very impressive.
Oh, well, thank you.
I've led strategic plan development, and I can tell you that it took a whole day in some cases to get this. Even when you started with one.
I was gonna say the exact same thing. I've been to sessions where it took most of the day just to get to. Excellent.
Very good, and
Yeah.
and the rationale behind this, great job. Clement.
Well, thank you for the compliment.
What's the next step?
Next step is cost benefit. Doing a SWOT analysis. So I'd like to get the IDA's thoughts on where our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are.
Yeah.
From your standpoint, and I'll put together a few that I think are obvious, but certainly it won't be complete.
Strikes me that the fair weather SWOT analysis is still pretty much accurate.
Well, that was very helpful.
Yeah,
That was a direction.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's probably where I figured I'd start,
Mhm.
but it will be interesting to see what progress has been made and where progress hasn't been made, right? And are there things that we can do to update? Are there new things, anything that we can take off? Anything that it's been 6-7 years now, so it'll be important to review that.
Yeah.
And review it from the lens of the IDA could change some things as well.
And it wasn't looked at from a new idea, it was looked at from a broad perspective. Some of state looking at us and saying this, and now we've got more with this organization being much more, I think, active. I think that's really important.
Okay. Are we finished? Move on for other?
The only thing I would mention is that I will be on vacation next week. Because if I don't, my wife will probably divorce me.
There's always one another.
Let's just hope she doesn't look at this video camera.
All right, executive session?
Mr. Chairman, I would ask the board to enter executive session for two purposes, to discuss the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, and to discuss the proposed acquisition, sale, or release of real property, and that's for Patsy's benefit, of course.
Do I have a motion?
We're taking over your real property.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Opposed? Hearing none? We'll move into executive session now.
Patsy, I don't anticipate any action afterwards.
So
Thursday of the month. Third Thursday of the month. 1, 2, 3. Third Thursday is May 23rd, is that correct?
Probably.
Good enough for me.
I thought it was the 16th.
Third Thursday, 1, 2, I'm sorry, you're absolutely right, it is the 16th.
So it
It's the
is
wrong month.
10:54. Is there a motion to come out of executive session? Although you
Yes.
probably made it.
Yes, we've done that.
At 10:50.
10:53. Can I have the,
I made the motion and Joe seconded.
all right. Okay, so next meeting is Thursday, May 16th, 9 a.m. here. Unless the board wants to change that date.
Not at this time.
I don't believe there's any other business unless there is, Mr. Chairman.
No,
All right, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
all in favor,
Aye.
opposed, hearing none?
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, I have got to go to interment.